Morning, everybody, on this super foggy and rainy day. We're happy to have you here. I'm Katie. I'm with the Erie County Department of Senior Services, and we're here with Miranda from Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York. Thank you, Miranda, for coming back to us.
Thanks for
Quick
having me.
shout out to our sponsors, which is Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield, Western New York, Celsius Orthopedics, and Wegmans, and then my Department of Senior Services for all they do for us and allow us to do really awesome things like this. If you ever need anything, please do not hesitate to call us at Senior Services. We're at 858-8526. We are recording this session, and if all goes as planned, I'll post it on our website in the near future. And feel free to put any questions, comments, tips, and tricks that work for you right in that chat box. So if you're new to us, it's at the lower right-hand side of your screen if you're on a computer, or if you're on a tablet or your smartphone, touch your screen. That brings up your control panel. You'll see a little circle with 3 dots, and then you should find your chat there. So we hope you participate. But let's learn about our star of the show. Miranda McCoy is a certified health coach with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York, with Highmark. She has an undergraduate degree in biochemistry from Canisius College and just completed her master's degree in health and human performance with a specialty in strength and conditioning. Heck yeah, that's awesome. She's been
Thank you.
doing presentations with University Express for over 3 years and enjoys working with the community. And I love working with her. Miranda, thank you. It's all yours.
Thank you, Katie, so much. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be back and doing another semester here with a couple presentations. I do still miss seeing everybody face to face, but I love that this is an option for everybody. So you can still be involved and learn and, kind of still focus on some different things for yourself. So I'm glad to be here. As Katie said, my name is Miranda. I'm a health coach from Highmark Blue Cross Blue Shield. I've been in that position for a little over 5 years now. So I've gotten to learn quite a lot about the community, about our members, and I really love working with our members on their health goals and seeing what sort of positive things we can make change in their life. And speaking of positivity, that's actually kind of what we are going to be focusing on today for the presentation. So I'm sure you've all heard of the power of positivity or some sort of phrase, related to positivity itself. And today we're going to do a little bit more of a focus on self-talk in relation to how that can impact your positivity and impact your overall outlook on life. So, I'm sure you guys have heard of positivity. Most of my members and most of my presentation attendees have kind of heard about self-talk in some way or another. So I'm excited to get into it and learn a little bit more. So looking next here. So why positivity? So why are we even addressing the topic of positivity? And for a number of reasons, we should be really trying to put some effort into approaching our daily life in a positive manner. And that includes the increase of general happiness, courage, motivation. We can have improved relationships when we have that positivity as a focus. And maybe one of the most important things, or even why it's more related to kind of what that topic we're going through, is just the overall effect that positivity can have on our health. So in my research, I kind of came across a couple of research studies, one done by Lisa Yamnick, who works with John Hopkins. And in her research, they had taken members and taken kind of a population of people who had a pre-exposure to heart disease, cardiovascular disease, family history, all of that different kind of everything that goes into cardiovascular diseases. And they had found that people that had a family history of heart disease who had a positive outlook in life were 1/3 less likely to have a heart attack or other cardiovascular events within 5 to 25 years when compared to those who had a negative outlook. In this study in particular, positivity was actually determined by a survey tool that they had that assessed members' cheerfulness, energy levels, anxiety levels, and overall just satisfaction with their life and their health. So it's very interesting to see that not only can we just say, yes, it's kind of clear that positive has a great correlation with kind of how we live our life and the outlook that we have, but there's actually research studies done how positive or positivity and having a positive outlook can positively impact our health. Especially when faced with kind of some of those sort of health issues and chronic conditions. Uh, Being positive actually helps to better protect us against the inflammatory damage of stress. Now, that in itself can be a whole nother presentation, just going through stress, cortisol levels, the amount of damage it can have on our body, and how to handle stress. I think that's another great thing to focus on as well. And then also being positive may help us to make better health and overall life decisions. If you've noticed and can think back to maybe moments in your life or days in your life where maybe you haven't been as positive as normal, or you maybe have kind of, if they put it, woken up on the wrong side of the bed or something like that, um, you can tell that usually on those negative days, we tend to be more aware of negative things that happen, or more negative things happen than normal, versus if we wake up on the right side of the bed, kind of aiming at a positive day, we tend to not maybe have as many opportunities for negative situations or events to occur because we're already feeling good for the day. So, just kind of an introduction as to why even bring up the aspect of positivity. So, what we're going to go into a little bit more in depth is going through that self talk. So, defining it, going through what we call the thought cycle, positive versus negative self talk, maybe some of the triggers that we've had. Then we're going to focus on how do we switch that? How do we take it from negative to a positive? And how do we change kind of our wiring in our brain, or what we've already been doing for so long? We'll go through some different things like mantras and intentions, affirmations, kind of creating those and how to utilize those in our everyday. And then I did want to spend just a little bit of time at the end looking at how, in addition to self talk, what are some other things that we can do to approach our days in a positive manner and increase that just general positivity? All right, so let's get into it. So, what is self talk? It is a pretty clear definition. It's pretty simple in its way of, it is the way that you talk to yourself. It is something that we can use in many different manners. So it's something that can build us up or it can break us down. You might already be thinking of some different situations, different thoughts, different phrases, or things that you might say to yourself on a daily basis. And they can range from negative to positive. We can kind of have a mixture throughout the day. So it's not necessarily something that we say to ourselves out loud. I'm sure that all of us kind of say things in our head throughout the day as well. And then it really does affect and frame our reactions to situations, our reactions to people, our thoughts and our feelings, not only with ourselves, but also just the environment and the world around us. So, self talk itself, generally, what happens is it's pretty subtle, it's pretty quick. We kind of say the phrase sometimes without even thinking about it. And it really is a big factor in what you think about yourself and who you are and your tendencies. There has been shown to have a positive correlation between self talk and self esteem. So generally, those of us who have a more positive self-talk really try and build ourselves up, with any situations that we come to, generally have a higher self-esteem, higher confidence, as we kind of move throughout our day and move into certain situations. And then on the other side, having a negative self-talk where maybe you're not as nice to yourself, or kind of say things that we, might not want to hear to ourselves. We tend to have maybe self-esteem, maybe not as much confidence walking into things. So it's also referred to your inner voice, something you might have heard more often than self talk, is we all have that inner voice. So I wanted to go through, and something that we had kind of briefly mentioned earlier was this thought cycle. So as you can see here, we'll start at the top with thoughts. It leads to the right there down to emotions, behaviors, and then outcomes. So we'll go through a little bit in depth about kind of each, and how our self talk can influence these. So we start out with a thought, could be a negative thought or a positive thought. What happens is that thought that we had generally leads us to feel a certain way, or kind of elicit some of those emotions to come out. The way that we feel, or our emotions, generally dictate the actions or the behaviors that we take in any certain situation. And then in turn, those actions that we take, or those steps and behaviors that we take in a situation, leads to some sort of an outcome or event. So even just thinking already of this cycle, we can see how maybe a negative thought will create and elicit some negative emotions like sadness or anxiety, or any of those certain emotions, whereas we will lead to behaviors of maybe withdrawing from a situation, or maybe a negative thought leads to an emotion of anger. And when we're angry and have that tendency of emotion, it leads to maybe a behavior of an outburst, or, saying something that you wouldn't normally say, or, that you feel like maybe you shouldn't have said, which then can lead to an outcome that maybe we didn't want, just based on a quick negative thought that we had. And on the verse side of the positive situation, so we have a positive thought that can lead to confidence, it can lead to motivation, we can lead to just general happiness. When we're happy, we tend to have more behaviors of care, kindness, all of those different things in relation to kind of that happy, positive feeling. And then generally with that, our outcomes are going to be a much more positive manner, and things that we really do want to see and want to feel. So, um, for example, I do have an example here of kind of a thought process around nutrition. So you're attempting to eat better, and all you can think of is maybe, why am I doing this? I don't have enough willpower for this. That's when I hear a lot is, I don't have any willpower. I'm never going to lose the weight. Your thoughts in that situation of nutrition have led you to be kind of unhappy with yourself and how you approach nutrition situations, and motivation lessons. And because you're so kind of upset with yourself and not believing in yourself, we kind of get to that point of frustration where, like, this isn't working anyway. So we end up going to the store, we buy a bag of chips, and maybe we eat the whole bag of chips. And that's something, whereas that negative thought of you're telling yourself you can't do something has led to the outcome that we didn't want. We're trying to be healthier and eat healthier. We end up, maybe making an unhealthy decision with nutrition based on our thoughts. So thoughts make us feel a certain way, leading us to do certain things, which end up giving us certain results. What's crazy is that we can change those thoughts, emotions, and behaviors to give us different results by focusing on that positive. So, a couple different things on just kind of comparing this aspect of positive self talk. So, some questions to think about. So, if we are working hard to get and build stronger muscles, what do we generally do? What are the steps that we take to build up our strength? It can range from a couple of different ways, but for our muscles, we generally try to exercise, we work out, we try to stretch, and there's a difference of doing that maybe once a month. If we do that once a month, we probably won't see many results, unfortunately. So it's something that we need to do consistently. Same goes for self-talk and kind of gearing into that positivity. It's something that we kind of have to have a conscious effort for and do a little bit of practice, every day. Same thing goes with maybe creating a good foundation for a house. So this in itself is, we think of a good foundation, maybe concrete, something solid, some values and truths to lead us upon. So maybe sitting down and thinking of those positive characteristics of yourself and your values, writing those down so you have a good point to start with when you're looking at that positive self-talk. So self-image and the self-talk is no different. So in order to build that self-image, we need to exercise that self-talk and practice every day, and we need to make sure that there is that solid foundation um, to build upon. So self-worth, self-love, trust, positivity, family values. There's so many different things that you could kind of put in your own little notes there. So when you do live your life based on those types of thoughts, you're living on that solid foundation with room to grow and room to keep building. It's something we can always do and make progress in. I wanted to just go through a couple of different aspects of self-talk. So again, it can go both ways. We have negative and positive self-talk. This is to get you familiar with what sort of self-talk you do utilize yourself on a daily basis, so you can start to recognize it. So going through the left side here with the negative self-talk, generally referred to as your inner critic, can be demeaning, labeling, hurtful. Generally, 99.9% of the time, it's false. These aren't true things. It may come from maybe different events that you have experienced throughout your life, maybe different people in your life that have maybe said it first, and you've kind of adopted that into your own personal language to yourself. And it can also lead to, again, kind of that lack of motivation, maybe some aspects of like depression and anxiety, increased stress, kind of those sort of negative behaviors, negative emotions, in addition to that. On the flip side here, looking at positive self-talk. So this has more been known to be things like your encourager, generally uplifting, motivating, challenging, confident statements, being optimistic. Again, may come from different people or different events in your life that you have experienced or situations that you've been through. And then on the flip side, positive self talk helps to lead to increased self confidence, happiness, better outlook, fuller life. We could go on and on with that one itself. So I think it's great to recognize them because we can again look into some of the different statements and things that we use ourselves, and so we can start changing those into positive. And we'll kind of look at that a little bit more in depth and go through a brief little exercise just to kind of get your brain moving for it. All right, so I wanted to go. Oh, before I do that, so unfortunately, what we've seen from research, from what we've kind of done with members itself, is when you look at positive versus negative self-talk, more than 3/4 of what we say, so 75% or more of what we say, falls within that negative self-talk. And if you've been kind of thinking throughout the presentation so far about maybe some phrases and things that you say to yourself, you might find that that rings true. And so our goal today is to really figure out what we're saying to ourselves, switch it so we can start saying, okay, more than 3/4 of what we say is positive to ourselves, because that's when we're going to see the best changes and the most positive changes. All right, so types of negative self-talk. Again, this is just to go through so we can help to recognize what we're doing. There's the worrier, the critic, the perfectionist, the victim. Some phrases here are, what if? So that kind of creates anxiety, overreacting. When we're kind of looking towards the future, we have a scenario, what if this, or this happens, and it's not a positive thing. We tend to start thinking about all those things, and that leads to worry. The critic. So you're judging, you're evaluating, or labeling. I am blank. Generally leads. You can lead or give a negative word there. That's what the critic would say. Or why can't I? Why can't I just do this right? Why can't I get this right? We hear that one a lot. And then the perfectionist. So kind of characterizing it as, it's pushing, never satisfied with anything. Maybe chronic stress or chronic burnout is associated with this type of self talk. So I should have done this differently. I have to get this, and this done. Otherwise, I'm a failure. I must complete this task or whatever it may be. You have to do it right and you have to do it perfect. And then the victim promotes depression, hopelessness, kind of feelings of anxiety. I never get that answer correct, or I never can clean my house, or fill in the blanks with some different things you might feel like have happened. But it's important again to kind of just look at these and start to recognize them. I wanted to move into the positive as well, and kind of as we're going through them, maybe think of some different phrases that you have and utilize on a daily basis. So types of positive self-talk include the motivator, the proclaimer, the realist. So the motivator encourages and pushes in a positive manner. So I can do this, or I can get this right. I can get my task list done today. And even just thinking about it in the I can and I can't, we know I can is a more positive statement. And honestly, just saying them, I already feel better, going through these positive aspects. The proclaimer. So this is more of like a declaration. You're stating and you're confident in what you're saying. You're positively reinforcing something. So I am smart. You know, I am organized. I am. You're making a proclamation about what you are. And we tend to start believing those things and really living those out when we constantly hear them and say them. The realist. So this is kind of a type of self-talk that is more accepting, understanding, and kind of understanding and accepting what happened, but also moving forward. So I accept whatever the situation was, and I will not do that again, or whatever it is. That's kind of a positive statement. Or I always tend to do this, but I'm going to do this next time. So understanding where you're at and then where you're going. So I wanted you guys to just take a minute, and usually if we are in person, we kind of have a back and forth, not necessarily question and answer, but more of a discussion around the aspect of what our personal self-talk looks like, just to kind of get you some examples. So I know Katie said there is a kind of chat. if you guys want to kind of type things or chat amongst yourselves or anything like that, um, you know, you're more than welcome to, kind of participate in that way. Or if you want to take your own notes, come back to it later, you're more than welcome to do that as well. So I just wanted to have you guys just take a minute just to kind of look at what your self talk does look like. So now that we have an understanding of what self talk is, and we have some examples, I would like you to try and maybe think about, if you need to, or write it down if you need to, what you do think about and say to yourself on a day to day basis. So kind of to get you thinking, think and look for examples maybe when something goes wrong or something doesn't go as planned. What are some different things that you say to yourself in that moment? And then on the flip side, maybe think of when something goes right or, when something goes as planned. What are some different things that you might say, some phrases, some words? Maybe when you're setting a goal or when you're thinking about making a change in your life, what sort of things do you say to yourself in those situations? Um, and it can even boil down to maybe what do we say in our head and what do we say out loud? Because sometimes they can be a little bit different in that regard. We might find in our head we're a little bit more negative, but out loud we try to be more positive. And then once you kind of maybe have written down or thought about a couple phrases and things like that, are you finding that most of your self talk is negative? Is there any positive in there? Are we maybe half and half, or are we, leading already maybe a more positive thought process? Um, and then after we do that, we'll kind of stop and move on to the next section. I did see one of the chats that came up, and I did kind of want to quickly just briefly mention that I know obviously within the last couple years here with the pandemic and everything that has happened, I think that we have seen a lot of changes in what we normally are able to do, our opportunities, our daily life. Things have definitely been different than what it was pre-pandemic. I think that with and where we're at right now, with maybe getting a little bit of a more handle on things, we kind of have those opportunities again, or maybe different opportunities. So, I do agree that with what that member had said, with just maybe not having as many of the activities that you were able to enjoy or many of the hobbies that you had previously. And I would encourage you as well with that. It could just be maybe a closing chapter of your life there. And now there's a new chapter to be opened with some different hobbies, activities, or things that you maybe don't know that you'll enjoy or that will help to lead to that positive lifestyle. So, all right. Next here. So, I wanted us to take a minute now and just kind of think about some of our triggers. So I want you to identify some situations or some characteristics that lead to, maybe we'll focus right now just on negative self-talk. So, do you say any sort of negative things about your body, personality, skill set? Do you only say negative things when certain people are around? Take just a minute or two to think about that. And then once you've maybe identified those situations, kind of leave a space maybe next to those. And we can come up with maybe an answer as to why, why do we say things negatively about our body? And it could be just simply as in, maybe there's a certain outfit that you have really wanted to wear that you don't fit in, and so you're working towards that. Or it could be the unfortunate circumstances of maybe something along the way of your life has said something like you and that stuck, or said something to you about your body that has stuck with you for years and years. We can always change that, and that's exactly what we're trying to do today, is kind of get rid of all of those lies and move them into truth and positive. Um, so I want you to kind of take a second and focus on the positive aspect now. So doing the same thing for the positive self-talk. So identify situations that make you say positive things about and to yourself. Again, are certain people the triggers? What do you say positively about yourself? Are you a good worker? Are you organized? Are you good with time management? Are you a great family person? You're really good with your grandkids, or your siblings or whatnot. So just kind of thinking as to what positively do you say yourself, and why do you say those things positively about yourself? Because it's good to know as well. So all of these things you can kind of take and think about as triggers. So again, it could be certain situations, people that you're surrounded by, maybe stress of a job or an extracurricular that you maybe have taken too much on your plate. There's a lot of different things you can pull from, and it's good to sit down and just recognize them. It's kind of the first step to making a change with it is just knowing where it comes from and why to begin with. All right, so now that we've kind of taken the time to recognize, look at what we do so far, maybe what our day to day looks like. We really want to work on refocusing. We definitely need to refocus onto the positive. I would say, and if you could maybe put in the chat quickly, because it does pop up so I can see it, in your brief exercise here, where do you feel like most of your self talk was? Do you feel like it is more negative, is more positive? What do you feel like? I know somebody had mentioned that they feel like they are a perfectionist, they hold themselves to a certain standard. Um, Tell me maybe a little bit about your thoughts and your feelings right now surrounding the self talk aspect. And I'll try and continue to kind of go through some things as maybe some of the chats pop up. Um, Personally, I love quotes. I think that they can be very powerful and redirecting, where our focus is. So this one's a little bit brass, but it's tell the negative committee that meets inside your head to sit down and shut up. So again, a little bit brass, but to the point. We want to kind of get all of those negative thoughts out of our head and replace them with the positive. So again, positivity leads to increased confidence, worth, self-esteem, happiness, something that we've touched on already. Some of the ways that we can keep that positive on there. All right, so one of the members did say aspects of the news. So, kind of being in that very negative standpoint, having the news on currently is definitely very depressing is the words that they used. And I agree with you. And what I would say to that is not necessarily not to focus on news or don't ever turn on the news or anything like that, but give yourself a boundary. Boundaries are great for a multitude of things, and that includes the news. If you feel like you're getting to the point of you're feeling the news, you're starting to feel that anxiousness, that depression, that sadness that comes with all of it. Turn off the TV, put down the newspaper, whatever it may be. Kind of take a step back and walk away from it. It's okay. And you can come back to it when maybe you're feeling a little bit better. I think it is great to keep up on what is happening. And unfortunately, with media, they tend to get more views and mostly only go through what is happening negatively. So you can honestly even, subscribe to maybe a positive news network or, if you know that there's a certain channel or show that does touch on the news, but touches more on the positive side of things. So you kind of have a little bit of both. That might be, something to go through as well. But that was a great example because it's definitely all around us.
Miranda,
Um,
I got a thing that came through just to me. It says, I've suffered with depression for a long time. The best book I have found that helps me with this matter is Self-Talk is Telling Yourself the Truth by William Backus.
okay. Yeah, that's great. I love those suggestions. That's something I actually have not read that one. So, um, that any sort of like, books in that manner or resources, yeah, whatever you feel like has helped you, definitely put it out there for other people to see as well, because it could be something super helpful for somebody else. I'll have to write that one down on my book list. Um, so some different ways to, and that you can kind of help focus on the positivity is focusing on the present. A lot of the times when we either look towards the past or look towards the future, the future is that sort of what if standpoint. We don't know what's going to happen. So a lot of different situations run through our mind with that versus sometimes focusing on the past. We tend to have that sort of thought of what was and not what is at this point. Um, so focusing on the present just helps us to stay more grounded, and allow ourselves to kind of live in the moment and really focus on living in that positive aspect of things. We want to assess problems as challenges and not as threats. So even just the way you come across and think of an issue or a situation um, can really help get you through that situation in a more positive manner as well. So thinking of it as a challenge, something that maybe I can't do it right now, but I'm going to be able to do it, or maybe I'm going to really learn something great from this situation versus, thinking about all of those sort of negative aspects of a situation or event of, being threatening or, anything kind of synonymous with that. Um, Failures are building blocks. And I don't know if that's a phrase that you guys have heard before. So a lot of the times, failure has a negative connotation around it. Is that, if you fail, it could mean X, Y, and Z. But failure in many of our eyes is you're attempting something, you're trying something, and each time you fail, you generally learn something from it and you gain something positive from it. So using those failures as building blocks to, get closer to where you want to be and what you're doing. An important thing that is and can be recognized as well is that successes can be repeated. You know, Sometimes people think because you did something once, you can never do it again, or you'll never get to that standpoint or that sort of height per se again. But successes can always be repeated. We have all those different characteristics that we learned from that situation to make it a repetitious situation. And then maybe one of the most important things to think about in the aspect of positivity is around performance. Um, we generally live our lives and society kind of has this thought as in your performance is your self-worth. So how you perform in work or how you perform in a situation, that is what equals your worth. So if we can kind of shift our mindset to the performance that we have does not equal our self-worth, we might feel that around that itself, we're going to have a little bit more positive outlook. All right, so your brain is powerful. I'm sure we have recognized that so far. We do so many things on a daily basis just to keep ourselves moving and breathing that we don't even have to consciously think about, just because of our brain and everything that it goes. So using it in a positive manner. So you can control your actions, you control your thoughts, and you control your reactions. So when we approach these things in the aspect of you are in control, it's a choice for us then and can be that's a great thing to think about because when we have choice in the decision and choice in the matter, we can choose to go positive or negative. I'll give you a brief example of something that somebody had said to me quite a few years ago. That at first I was a little bit kind of taken aback with the situation. We were just talking about a situation that I was in where me and another person were maybe not on the same page about something, and the phrase I used was "they made me cry," and was very emotional. Growing up and kind of didn't have that thought around the aspect of control. And the person said to me, "They didn't make you cry." I said, "What do you mean?" "No, they made me cry. We had this situation, we got in a fight or whatnot, and, I ended up crying." And they said, "They didn't make you cry. You chose to cry. You chose to get upset about the situation." And it took me a couple days. At first, I was a little upset just because, you've grown up all your life thinking that people do things to you and, whatnot. But the more I thought about it is true. We had a situation, and what I did was I chose to take whatever happened to heart or listen to maybe the lies that were told or the hurtful things or whatnot, and I chose to take that deep, and it elicited emotional response of me in crying. So ever since that statement, that stuck with me. I think it's been 12 years or so since that person had said that, and I really think about that in situations now. Is you have control of your thoughts, your actions, and your reactions, and it's about practicing it. And, nobody's perfect for sure, but we can make that positive effort into putting that into our daily life. A couple more kind of phrases, quotes here that I wanted to throw in. So the top one is be careful how you're talking to yourself because you are listening. That's from Lisa Hayes. And then the bottom one is whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I'm sure you've heard that one before. When you kind of approach, I know it generally comes more. I have a young toddler now, so we're at a lot of like sporting events with our nieces and nephews and things like that. So, it's something I see a lot of people are trying to instill in their children, related to just sports. If you don't think you can do it, you're not going to do it. If you think you can do it, there's well more of an opportunity that you may be able to accomplish it. The law of attraction. What we focus on is what will be attracted to us. All right. This is a technique that you can utilize when you are looking at changing your negative self-talk to positive self-talk, and it's the SOS technique. So it stands for stop, observe, and shift. So mentally, you want to tell yourself to stop when you have a sort of negative thought or when you start to say something negative about yourself. Um, you can actually mentally tell yourself to stop, or you can actually say it out loud. I find that sometimes that helps us recognize it a little bit more and actually stop the thought is when you say it out loud. It gives you the opportunity to address the thought and then interrupt that cycle that's happening of the thought turning into the emotion, the behavior, and then the outcome. So you want to observe. After you stop, you want to observe what you're saying to yourself and how it's making you feel. So, what was I going to say? Why was I going to say that? And how is that making me feel? Once we recognize how it's making us feel and what we're actually saying about ourselves and why, we can now shift that thought and the cognitive, emotional, and behavioral response that would follow that by using positive self talk and positive coping skills and techniques in that situation. All right, so we want positivity. Obviously, that's the whole goal and point of the presentation is to shift that negative aspect into positive. So turning those negative phrases into positive statements like I am, I know, and I accept. I want you to just take a minute, and if you did either write down your thoughts on your negative and positive self-talk, or if they were just in your head, I want you to just grab one of those statements that you say from the negative side, and I want you to make an attempt to change it into a positive statement. So, for example, a lot of people and those close to me, I hear this phrase a lot: "I am an idiot." Kind of making a dagger at their intelligence level and kind of how they, whether it be scholarly, daily life. So changing that statement to I am smart, I am intelligent, I am thoughtful, I am resourceful. There's so many different things that you can say to change that statement. So I want you to just take, maybe 30 seconds or so and grab one of those negative statements and then transition it to a positive statement. And if you feel led, you can put it in the chat. I would love to see some examples of what you guys have come up with and kind of what you are making steps for to create that more positive thought process. So using some of those different types of the positive self-talk, the motivator, the encourager, uh, the proclaimer, uh, the realist, kind of using those sort of examples um, as your outline. Anybody have any examples? We think. So while you guys are kind of finishing up your thoughts or writing in the chat, I'll just give you an example of one of mine. During most of my childhood era and in school, um, I went through lots of aspects of bullying, mainly based on my physical appearance. So one of the things that I had grown up thinking was, I'm ugly, I'm never going to be loved, I'm never going to, maybe live out that life of, having a partner and, children and whatever comes with that. And that comes again with the what if situations, what if somebody, you know, doesn't like the way I look or whatnot, then you kind of are in that warrior standpoint. So I didn't even really recognize what I was doing until well past my school years. And it was just until, maybe honestly when I had started looking into this presentation and, kind of learning a little bit more about self-talk is when I really changed that and learned about what I was doing to myself and just how I was feeling about myself. So one of the phrases that I've changed, from what I've grown up with being, I am ugly, or I am, not worth it, or, I'm not loved, is just to say I am worthy. I'm worth it. I'm worthy. I am beautiful. I am whatever sort of thing you want to put in there. That's just one that I personally have. And, talking to yourself in that manner, I know on a personal standpoint, I just feel better about myself, on a day-to-day basis when I approach it like that. All right, so putting it into practice, again, something that we talked about earlier is this isn't just going to change magically. I wish it would. Sometimes it's hard to take the time and the effort to put in, when we think of all the things that we have on our list to do that day. But honestly, taking 2, 3 minutes, oh, I like that. Change that to let's focus, or I can do it. Love that. That's a great one to utilize. So identifying where is that negative coming from? How can I change it to positive? I know we just kind of did a brief exercise today, but even if you're able to sit down, 5, 10 minutes here and there, a couple of different times, throughout the next couple of weeks, you will maybe start to recognize different situations that come up that you've gone through. How can I change it to positive using those different examples that we had? Use daily. So again, it kind of comes down to that practice aspect. With most things that we do, we need to form it into a habit. If we're just doing it once every couple weeks, once a month, or something like that, unfortunately, it's not going to make much change. We really need to put a little bit of effort. And again, it doesn't need to be hours and hours a day. It's an over the length of time. So if you're able to do, 5 or less minutes a day of just writing down a couple affirmations or saying things like that, it'll be interesting to see for you, how long it takes you to already feel like you're living a more positive life. And then creating the habit. So repeating those positive words and phrases over and over, you will finally start to believe them. So we're working on replacing those things that we already have into those positives. And when you hear positive things about yourself over and over and over again, they start to take the same form that those negative things did take. And we start to believe them. So this is one of my favorite phrases, I guess, or one of my favorite quotes is, talk to yourself like you would talk to somebody that you love. So a lot of the times when I'm around somebody who might have said something negative about themselves, I'm like, would you say that to me? And they're like, no, I would never say that to you. I don't believe that about you. And I was like, then why are you saying it to yourself? Why are you letting yourself talk negatively to yourself? Especially you don't want other people talking to you like that. So why do we allow ourselves to talk to ourselves like that? Just a food for thought thing. If we can kind of approach it from that sort of way, we might be a little bit more aware of the things that we're saying. All right, so mantras or mantras, I think is more pronounced in that aspect, and affirmations. So a mantra originally comes from Hinduism, Buddhism. A mantra is a word or sound that they actually use to aid in concentration in meditation. So it's a word or a sound that's generally repeated over and over again. Most of you might be thinking of the person sitting down with their fingers like this going, um, that's one of the things that is a mantra for them. So the first part of the word man or man equals mind, and then tra in that language is equal to transport or vehicle. So it's something that's supposed to be used to transport your mind to a different place. And in this aspect, we're talking about a more positive place. An affirmation is defined as emotional support, encouragement, kind of an encouraging proclamation. These mantras or affirmations should be simple, powerful, healing, energizing, and obviously positive. So that kind of breaks down to, again, kind of the mantra, I guess, or affirmation that I had mentioned earlier. For myself, mine is I am worthy. So one of the things I encourage you to do is if you do have and you've found maybe 1 or 2 mantras, you have a couple affirmations written down, I encourage you to take these and make sure that you can hear them, read them, or see them at different points throughout your day. And honestly, it might sound silly at first, but whether it's a sticky note on your bathroom mirror that you read in the morning every time, when you get up to brush your teeth or get ready for the day, or even I have some members actually who set alarms on their phones now, and you can write like a note in the alarm for whatever it's for, and it could be your affirmation that pops up on that alarm. as the reminder. So there are plenty of different ways to make sure that you see your affirmation or your mantra and that you can utilize it. And again, it just helps to even that brief 15, 30 seconds of it popping up, you reading it and saying it either out loud or in your head, it's automatically going to redirect and refocus you for the day. Does anybody have any affirmations or mantras that they have thought of or written down so far? Um, I know the one that popped up earlier, I can do it. That is a great affirmation and mantra. Um, I am loved. That's something that I know, when I've asked a lot of my members, that's one that they utilize a lot. Um, and you can have affirmations for those different types of self-talk. So, um, breathe. That's great. I am sweet and thoughtful. Oh, that's wonderful. I bet you are great and sweet and thoughtful. That's wonderful. Be thankful you woke up today. Um, I am caring. Beautiful. I love those. We're actually going to talk briefly about the aspect of gratitude in the next slide as well, in the aspects of positivity. All right. So those are great so far. I love to hear what you guys have to say. Last couple things here. So these are some other ways, in addition to the self-talk, on how to live positively. So starting your day off with a positive thought. Again, we kind of back at the beginning when we talked about waking up on the wrong side of the bed. I know that's like a funny quote people utilize when people are in a bad mood or whatnot, but positivity is a conscious choice. And again, kind of a hard thought to think about is putting effort into being positive. Most people don't just wake up and are, amazingly positive every day, even despite, bad events and things that happen. You really have to put effort into it. But again, that's a great opportunity to have because we can choose that day to be positive. So starting your day off with a positive thought, again, maybe mantra on your bathroom mirror, or even just waking up and before you even get out of bed, saying 3 nice things about yourself or about the day to come. You kind of put your mind in the right time frame, or put your mind in the right mind frame. Another aspect of, and you'll find that some of these as well, obviously are correlated with just living a healthy lifestyle in itself. So eating healthy foods. A lot of you probably are familiar with the aspect of healthy choices, healthy foods. Food itself affects how we feel and how we behave. We see it sometimes with our, kids or grandkids or siblings that, when you have too much sugar, you tend to have, sugar crashes, or their mood is changed and they're a little bit more ornery or maybe anxious. So we want to make sure that we're trying to encourage ourselves positively by providing our body with healthy and nutritious things that we know don't make us feel and behave a certain negative way. All right, surrounding yourself with positive influences. So you've probably heard that you are the sum of the top 5 people that you spend the most time with. So if you need to maybe reassess your circle or the people that you surround yourself with, or creating boundaries that we talked about as well, that's okay. And that's great that you recognize that. And kind of bringing it back to the law of attraction theory that we briefly mentioned, is when you start to become more positive, you might find your circle itself start to change to more positive people because you're just not allowing that negative into your life. Another way to help you to live a little bit more positively is that practicing gratitude. I know somebody earlier had mentioned just being thankful you woke up today, kind of being thankful for another day. And practicing gratitude is honestly greatly researched, and how it positively impacts your everyday life. People that practice gratitude tend to have a much more positive outlook, have more and more control or better health outcomes, again, just from the aspect of practicing gratitude. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. I would give an easy example of a daily journal. So not necessarily something you have to buy. They do have like laid out gratitude journals that you can do, or even just grabbing a piece of paper and a pen. And some people do it when they wake up or right before they go to bed, is just writing down a short list. Sometimes people just stick to 3 or 5 or 2, whatever kind of number works for you best. But writing down, say, 3 reasons why you are thankful, or 3 things that you are feeling grateful for that day. Um, and that in itself, again, kind of refocuses our mind to having and living in that positive manner. And then another aspect of living positively is exercising regularly. So current recommendations are moderate activity for 150 minutes per week, which equates to about 30 minutes, 5 days a week of just moderate activity. So brisk walking, like dancing, things like that. And then 2 days a week of any sort of strength training or resistance training. I won't go too much in depth. So again, exercise and strength and conditioning is like my specialty and something I love. So I could spend another whole hour talking about it. But something just to, if you have anything that you can do to put exercise in, even just starting slow, obviously, and gradual and adding as you can. But you might find as well, you might start sleeping better. You will start feeling better. Your body might start feeling better, which will lead to more positive thoughts. There's so many different things. Stress itself, exercise is used hugely as a stress management technique. Um, so you might find that that's helpful as well to put in. All right, I know there are so many other things that you can do, obviously, to live a positive lifestyle and kind of incorporate that positive outlook. This is just a brief, small list in addition to focusing on the self-talk aspect. Does anybody have, actually, before I go into the conclusion aspect, in the chat, maybe some different things that you do in your daily life that help you to stay more positive? Maybe in addition to what we had talked about so far. So we have the eating healthy, exercising, starting your day off with a positive thought, practicing gratitude, practicing positive self-talk, daily journaling, so many different things there. So if you have anything else that you want to share, please do so. I'm sure that the other members would benefit. Loving on grandbabies, that's great. Pets, that was actually one I didn't put in, but can be utilized as well. Some people really thrive on just having that sort of companion, whatever type of pet it can, is and what you have interest in. That tends to bring up our morale as well. All right, guys. So in conclusion, I want to just go through a couple of those brief things. So our thoughts drive our emotions and our actions, thinking back to that thought cycle. So we want to incorporate those positive thoughts to elicit those positive emotions, good behaviors, and outcomes that we're actually looking for. Positive things here. Self-talk is controllable. It is something that we have control and we can change. And positivity is a conscious choice. So we can wake up each day and really try and choose to live positively. Setting a mantra or intention or affirmation for yourself daily will be really helpful to starting this out and moving forward with it. And practicing, it will only get easier with time, and you'll tend to find you're going to start moving from, say, that 3/4 negative to maybe half negative to then only a quarter negative. And you'll find that you'll be mostly on that positive aspect. And then really attempt as well, if you can, incorporate some of those other positive aspects that we talked about to your day to help encourage that positive self-talk as well. All right, and then I just wanted to leave you guys with the last slide I have here, which is you can't live a positive life with a negative mind. So in conclusion, I wanted to thank you guys today. If you guys do have any quick questions or any more thoughts that you wanted to share, please do so in the chat. I know we'd be more than happy to maybe answer the questions or, kind of just take whatever for food for thought you guys have. And I appreciate your guys' time today.
Thank you, Miranda. That was wonderful. There's a couple things that popped up into the chat, which I'm sure you can see, but I'll read them. This person says, I remind myself of the alternatives, which are usually much worse than what I'm currently experiencing.
Mhm.
Everything you've discussed has great truth in it. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, guys. No, I'm glad that you guys were able to either solidify thoughts you already had around the topic of positivity, and or obviously I hope that you'll learn something new that you're going to be able to put into your everyday practice as well.
Mm, absolutely. I'm seeing I really needed this today.
Oh, that's good.
Mm,
That's great.
and then
I'm glad
just
you're
more
able to
thank
come.
yous. Uh,
Wonderful.
So, you mentioned strength training. Miranda will be back on Wednesday, June 22nd at 10:30 with us virtually to talk about strength training for an hour. So we hope you join us then. But thank you all for your time today, Miranda. Thank you as always. You're amazing.
Thank
Everyone enjoy the
you.
rest of your day.
Take care, guys.